GM, welcome to a very special edition of This Week in Frax. I'm your host, DeFi Dave. I'm here, as always, with Capital K and Sam Makolo. And this week, with FRAX V3 on release, we have the man himself, Sam Kazemian, on. Sam, you've been doing a huge Twitter space circuit now, and so thank you for coming back on Flywheel, where we get down and to the true alpha extraction. So thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Always in. Yeah. And now, let's get into it. I'm sure, a lot of our audience has heard a lot about FRAX V3, what it is, and are quite familiar with Frax. But for those who aren't familiar with it, what is FRAX V3, and how is it a 0-to-1 innovation for stablecoins?
Yeah, and so I actually like to call it, it's kind of the final stablecoin.
The final
At least,
stablecoin.
yeah.
Oh,
And the main thing here is, like, if you think of a dollar peg stablecoin design, right? You basically need it to function extremely well in a high rate environment and function really well in a low rate environment, right? And what I mean by that is the issuer of the asset you're pegging to, the Federal Reserve dollar, right? Like, they issue the dollar. They will increase interest rates, like right now, which is the highest rates that have happened in like 20 something years, right? And uh, your stablecoin design needs to thrive in this environment and also thrive in the environment where everything is pumping, for lack of a better term, right? There's a huge bull market, right? Up only,
right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Frax V3 seeks to completely address that in a minimalistic, low complexity design, but that excels in every way in that, right? It's fully on-chain governance. It has some small but narrow portion of a dedicated real-world asset strategy. It's not convoluted. It's not like crazy many layers of real-world asset, this or that. It's very simple to understand, and it also has the hallmarks of a decentralized stablecoin. There's no there's no blacklist. There's no centralization. There's on-chain collateral. There's protocol owned liquidity. Those programmatic contracts we call AMOs deploy liquidity on curve, on lending markets like Frax Lend and everything else, right? So it's basically the final stablecoin is what I
Mm-hmm.
like to say, is that no matter what the market condition is, it should be able to thrive.
Yeah, I think it fits in perfectly with the evolution of Frax. And I just wrote an article about this where V1 was basically Frax could only adjust its interior conditions, like you can only adjust within the body itself. V2, it could only adjust with on-chain conditions. And V3, now it can adjust with off-chain, like with treasury rates and stuff. So it's a very logical path to where it is, and I can see why you're saying it's the final stablecoin.
Yeah, it's in it's in any condition, right? And
Any
that's what's so
condition.
important, right?
Yeah,
Because like
the
when I
all-weather
was
stablecoin.
yeah, that's also a good way to put it, because some people, were saying, look, rates are going to go down, and they're, totally true, right? And then, but if you're long term oriented enough, rates will come back up as well,
Yeah,
right? Right?
yeah,
They'll go down, they'll come back up, they'll go sideways for a while. They go, and the thing is, what design is the safest and the most elegant, and that's always going to actually be able to work, right? And so that's
mhm,
Frax V3.
yeah. And I think a key part of the construction of Frax V3 is the IORB Oracle, which is the interest rate on reserve balances, which I think is a very smart move to use because, as you've discussed, you're like, oh, we got to peg to the risk-free rate, and the IORB is literally the risk-free rate. So can we, for those unfamiliar, can you go into what the IORB is, what this design choice was, and how specifically this Oracle works?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Like, the interest on reserve balances, or, as people in finance know, the IORB rate is the rate that the Federal Reserve just pays for deposits in the Fed master accounts, like banks or entities that have these master accounts. that's the rate when Jerome Powell comes out in like the presser every month that everyone memes and watches, right? And he's like 5.4%, like up
Ah,
20,
crowd goes
point
wild.
five higher, or like that's literally called the IORB rate. That's the rate the Federal Reserve banks pay on the interest on reserve balances. And so the idea with Frax V3 is the whole system works based on what that IORB Oracle says. If the rates are going much higher, right? All of us that have been in DeFi the past year know exactly what's going to happen, right? So you need like you said, Dave, an all-weather protocol that excels when this type of oracle is saying, okay, the rates are going up from 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.4. Who knows if it'll go up to 6, whatever they're hinting, right? And so the idea is that as that goes higher, if your stablecoin does not have really any way to uh, track that IORB rate, right? What's going to happen is your stablecoin supply is going to get sucked out and liquidity is going to dry up. People are going to sell that stablecoin for either another stablecoin that gives something close to that rate in terms of risk adjusted, right? Like it has to be very, very low risk. Otherwise, risking some, third world country loans in the real world for 5.4% is not going to cut it, right? So
Mm.
you want to be able to give that rate to people that hold your stable coin, because the Federal Reserve is giving that rate to people who hold dollars. Very simple idea, right?
Mhm.
And so that's why that has to be on chain. I think to my knowledge, Frax is like the only stablecoin that's basically said, look, the functioning of the system requires having an IORB Oracle, like just knowing what that rate is. What is the issuer of the dollar, the thing you're pegging to, actually paying for people to just hold it, right? And so our real world asset strategy is super simple. It's not expanding to emerging economies or taking risks for profit and these kinds of things. It's just there's a there's a staking vault called the sFRAX vault, staked Frax. You stake your Frax stable coins in there, and the Frax protocol and the AMOs and also the real world asset partners and custodians try their best. Obviously, it's not a legal guarantee because it's a decentralized protocol and DAO, but they try their best to get the IORB rate at the lowest risk possible, something very, very close. People in finance call it cash equivalents, right? Whether they're short dated T bills, they're reverse repurchase contracts, or you guys know on this podcast better than most is our final goal is to have direct partnership and get a Federal Reserve master account, so we could actually just straight up deposit it into the literal thing that just issues the IORB rate. So we won't even need an oracle technically then, right? It's just you
Mhm.
once that rate is not non-zero, you just offer it based on the amount of staked Frax deposited in that vault, right? But until then, right, we have a very simple real world asset strategy, very low risk assets that are close to the IORB rate, and obviously all of those asset mixes and custodian partners have to pass governance. The first one is FinresPBC. It's a public benefit corporation we put up that has relationships with banks, with brokers, with the other fiat stablecoins. The ability to actually hold T bills and these kinds of assets is cash equivalent assets. There's other custodians and partners that are already talking to us. And like, for example, Ondo actually signed a deal with FinresPBC, which even though
Ooh.
technically the
Oh.
partner is FinresPBC that has a relationship with Ondo, right? Because Ondo offers these tokens in a highly regulated environment, so they have to only interact with an entity. Technically, Ondo is in a certain sense our real world asset partner as well, because it's one step separated through FinresPBC, but FinresPBC has the ability to hold Ondo's OUSG, the short dated US government T bills, if it wants to do something like that, right? And that's a pretty simple thing to understand, right? Cash equivalents, and then with the ultimate goal of getting a Federal Reserve master account just directly ourselves through the Public Benefit Corporation. Obviously, again, once there's regulatory clarity, once there's Stablecoin Act passed, and once basically this kind of storm dies out, if you will, right? Like
Yeah.
first, for example, the FTX trial needs to get out of people's minds, right? It just started
Yeah.
today.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't look away, but
Yeah.
like that has to
It's happening down the
fully.
street.
Oh, are you allowed to show up at the courthouse?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know a
Oh,
few people that have.
you
I've been
should
meaning
do
to go.
you
Yeah.
do flywheel at the FTX
Yeah.
trial. That would be something.
Yeah. In between training, I'll just like hop down in the courthouse.
Yeah,
You,
so basically later, right? And
mm,
a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're never gonna get a Fed master account. It's so stupid." But it's like, no. We will, but we all obviously understand why it's really hard. We didn't say
yeah,
we'll do it tomorrow, but we said right when it's possible, we will. And as you guys have seen, as people who are going to listen to this have seen, we've done what we said. We've incrementally executed.
True.
We're doing things, and we're watchful, and we're
doing things.
proactive. Yeah, and so we'll get it. We'll get it
Yeah.
when it's possible.
So in that in your answer there, you mentioned that you're talking to other institutions and custodians. Could you give us a hint of what other custodians and institutions that you're talking to? Are there any big names in there? Is there anything you can shed light on there?
Yeah, well, I want to, but I can't because of them, not because of me.
Oh,
So,
okay,
but
fair,
and
fair.
in the end, but what I will say is, once everything is rolled out and stuff, obviously, FinresPBC, one of its responsibilities is to do monthly attestations, and we're actually trying to do those in real time, not even monthly, using plate integrations and API reporting, like bank level APIs. So once that stuff gets rolling, it'll obviously be clear because the attestations will be up. But
Mm,
yeah, I wish I could, but I can't.
mm,
Yeah.
understood.
Well,
Right now.
Sam, maybe more, not directly. Could you share with us what is the flow of funds? How does the money move currently from on chain to then off chain and then on chain again?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now, and there's two ways actually because of the Ondo that we just discussed, and then possibly even more. But the standard way is we have very good relationship with Circle and Paxos, right? And so as people stake FRAX into the staking vault, right, that tracks the IORB rate, we're able to actually withdraw USDC and Paxos either through Curve or either through the collateral we have on the balance sheet, right? And then convert those into fiat, right? And then once you in FinresPBC, and then once those are converted into fiat, then they go through a brokerage or another relationship that we have, and then we're able to actually get the yield on them, right? And then the reverse direction happens as well. If people are unstaking sFRAX for Frax stablecoins, right? What you need to do is you need to make sure there is deeply liquid, either collateral or redemption mechanism on chain to keep the Frax peg tight, right? So then the reverse happens. That fiat gets converted to USDC through FinresPBC, the USDC or Paxos or PayPal USD, in the near future, possibly,
Mm,
goes on chain and then is used as Frax liquidity on Curve and through the AMO strategies.
Got
yeah.
it.
Or also, right, Ondo, right? Ondo has their own system as well. And so if we end up using Ondo for a sizable portion, they actually intake USDC because in their entire flow, they actually take in USDC and abstract away that conversion under their own hood. So like that can also be used as a mechanism. In the future, we actually, and this is a one step, removed, but in the future, FinresPBC can actually build up all of these plate integrations, this reporting, this automated system of moving fiat to fiat coins, and then on chain and then off chain, this reverse system, to actually being able to offer that directly potentially with Frax
Hmm.
stablecoins, just abstract that away even more and be able to just do that directly with FRAX stablecoins. Again, means that we've probably won. We have actually Fed Master account. We have fiat money that's actually in depository accounts rather than using brokers and things like that. But in that final state, you can kind of see FRAX being both a decentralized dollar peg stablecoin, but also having essentially quasi-official way of redeeming it for literal fiat that literally comes from a Fed master account, right? But that's a second step. Maybe Frax V4.
V4, yeah.
A synthetic CBDC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a question in the Flywheel group about the RWA section of the docs from 563, who is actually makes great content, honestly. And he asked for the four listed assets that are considered shorted treasuries, repo purchase agreements, the master account, and select shares of money markets accounts. Are all of them already possible? Only a subset of them. So obviously, like the Fed master account, it's not available yet. But what about the other three?
All of them are possible, minus right now the reverse repo agreements. That they're a little bit more complicated, but
So they're all possible.
So for people that don't know, reverse repo agreements are actually a contract at the Federal Reserve where if you have a treasury bill, the Federal Reserve will actually like buy it from you for like $1 or something, like just simplifying, like at face value, and then the next day they will actually give it back to you for like they'll give it back and then they'll give you your dollar plus like interest, like a tenth of a cent or something like that. And so you just swap the treasury overnight with the Fed, the New York Fed. They have a reverse repo desk. You give them your treasury bill overnight, and then the next day they give you like a dollar, and then with interest, and then you get it back the day after that. So that's why it's called a reverse repurchase agreement. That is so that facility actually, just so for some background, that was started because when the Fed started hiking rates, like IORB rates went up, not that many banking institutions and stuff had Fed master accounts, so that they couldn't all get the IORB rates. So the Fed actually had a hard time like tightening the economy by increasing rates because it wasn't propagating into the broader financial and international dollar denominated markets. And so they had to basically come up with some kind of system to essentially give that interest rate more liberally to people, right? Or like the institutions essentially, right? Like money market institutions or like hedge funds and these kinds of things that are actually allowed to trade on the reverse repo desk. You can actually see the list of entities that are allowed to directly trade with the Fed and actually buy reverse repo contracts. And so the reverse repo contracts pay you back the next day incrementally some interest that mimics the IORB rate. So basically every night you give treasuries to the New York Fed, they take the treasury, they give you a reverse repo contract, and then the next day you get back your treasury bill, but just with a tiny bit of payment in US dollars, which represents the IORB rate overnight that you would have earned. So it actually propagates the Fed rate into different types of parts of the economy that don't have Fed master accounts. So that's where that asset comes from that we're exploring. It's basically a roundabout way for a Fed master account.
So it allows the Fed's monetary policy to go throughout the dollar world system faster.
Basically. Exactly, and it was actually started because it was hard for the Fed to do tightening very quickly because it wasn't actually propagating, the interest rate hikes weren't propagating fast enough.
Got it. Now let's get back to FRAX. And so with sFRAX, how I understand it is basically it's a FRAX savings account for all different types of strategies, both on-chain and off-chain. Off-chain, you have the risk-free rate with master account or like your cash equivalents and whatnot. But then also, if things ramp up on-chain, you're able to deploy in safer strategies on-chain. So can we go into like how sFRAX works and also how FRAX bonds work and like what the differences between them?
Definitely. So the other side of this is when rates are super low, right? And it's up only, right? Because when rates are super high, right? Like let's be honest, look around right now, right? Rates in DeFi suck because they're getting crushed by the IORB rate, right? Like no one's lending on Aave, no one's lending on Compound, or if they are, it's not great risk adjusted because it just sucks. Everyone's just crowded into treasury bills or some way to like try to access the IORB rate, right? The Fed's risk-free rate. So that is the part we just talked about. Now let's go to the other direction, as I think what you're asking is what happens when rates are zero or near zero. It's up only. Everyone remembers the greatest bull market that we've had, right? Everyone is lending on Compound and Aave. Their stable
And Frax
coins
lend.
are and FraxLend now. Now the next bull market definitely will be massively FraxLend, and everyone's earning like 10-15% interest for like lending their stable coins because everyone wants leverage, right? They're willing to pay massive amount of interest to like lever long on ETH or whatever is their favorite token because they think it's going to go up only, right? In that situation, what we just talked about is not really that relevant, right? What we just talked about, no one's going to be looking to get the IORB rate because the rate is zero, right? Because like that's the whole point in a high growth environment. So how does Frax work in this situation? Well, Frax actually becomes completely decentralized in the way that Maker works, in the way that liquidity, for example, works. You can have over collateralized you know low risk blue chip assets like LSDs, like ETH, like some type of decentralized wrap BTC or something like that, Frax BTC perhaps, the next bull market by then, right? And that can back the Frax stablecoin, right? And then they pay interest in those loans. Everything is good. The protocol is highly profitable, right? People are willing to open Frax loans, right, and pay big interest, and everything is great, right? In fact, the thing I like to joke about is in that environment, everything is great, right? Like like FXS is pumping. Everyone wants to pay massive interest in dollars and stuff. So everyone is having a great time. That's the one that you just need to make sure you're safe in terms of smart contract risk, in terms of Oracle risk, those kinds of non-economic things, right? The technically sound things, which thankfully Frax has been knock on wood very good about. We've never had like an incident where anyone has lost any funds ever or anything like that. In those situations, if everything is good, in terms of security, everything is great for everyone. Everyone's making money. Everyone's rich. It's only this time where you issue a stable coin, and it's pegged to the U.S. dollar, and the issuer of the U.S. dollar is saying, "Hey, everyone, come over here. Don't hold, USDC, Frax, DAI, whatever. Come over here, and we'll give you an insane interest rate for doing absolutely nothing." That's the part you have to prepare for, right? Because we've already built the infrastructure and like have innovative stability mechanisms, protocol on liquidity, AMO contracts, and all these things for those good times. Now we've completed, as you said, the all-weather stablecoin. We've completed the design for these current times, and so that's what's really important.
You know what's funny? This got me thinking. So with like Tether and Circle and those types of payment fiat stablecoins, they're incredibly profitable right now. But in the bull market, when interest rates were near zero, they really weren't that profitable. There was no way for them to profit. But the way that Frax is constructed, it is the all-weather stablecoin. It is the all-weather protocol. It can be profitable in both environments. In the same way, like if you go like way back in early in the history, like how can re-collateralize, decollateralize. This is like that version of that, but with yield on and off chain.
Yeah, then that's a very good point because basically, um, one thing that I like to point out, exactly as you said, is now Frax is just a dollar peg stablecoin is profitable in both basically all weather scenarios. But as you guys know, the Frax ecosystem is like highly diverse. There's Frax ETH, right? We've built Frax Lend, Frax Swap, and all these things. But and then obviously soon to come FraxChain, which is maybe even a entire flywheel episode by itself. But we have the innovation and the protocols, and now I call these sub protocols because sub DAOs are pretty trendy in terms of names. But these sub protocols to be even more lucrative during a bull market, right? Because think about it, Ethereum gas fees, right? When people were paying $25 to transfer an ERC20 token during the bull market, and they were happily doing that because they were making so much even more money, right? Ethereum itself, as for like the burn EIP 1559, was insanely profitable, right? During a bull market, they just print money, right? And so FRAX as an ecosystem, right, prints money in a bull market. Now we've solved the problem of making sure we can print money during a high rate environment, which is very, very important.
Yeah, I have one last question before we go. And this is about, you mentioned FraxChain. And now with Frax V3 out, and you guys are coming out with so many other things as well, BAM, Frax V3 2. How will the FraxChain architecture incorporate Frax V3 in mind? And what would be the value prop for users bridging to FraxChain? Because there's so many rollups out there, you know, they're offering incentives, this and that. But like, why should people bridge to FraxChain?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and obviously, we have a lot of stuff to announce, but some alpha is that FraxChain won't work like any other rollup. Um, we have designed this, and it's not finalized. Otherwise, I would obviously talk about it today. But when it is finalized, I promise to talk about it on Flywheel first. But the basic of course the basic idea is that the block space market on the blockchain, right? There's never been any innovation, right? It's just some gas price, right? Whether the gas price is expensive in like Ethereum terms or like super super cheap in like Solana terms, it's never like it's never actually been innovated on, right? And pricing gas and incentivizing users and developers, right? I call them the supply side and the demand side, right? The demand side is users, right? That demand, cool things to do and like economic activity. And the supply side is the supply of good apps and smart contracts, right? Being able to properly match the supply side and the demand side based on the activity in block space, right? Basically, like rewarding each side, either users that call smart contracts and pay gas, or smart contracts that have a transaction trace, right? What they did, how much block space and gas the smart contract used that the user paid for, and getting incentivized for that has never been thought of, right? And so what we've done, we've kind of put on our stablecoin hats again, right? Trying to match supply and demand by making a system where you can basically earn multiple things. VFXS, these other parts of something I won't, announce today, but earning different things that are possibly liquid by partaking in activity that's actually needs to be increased, whether that's deploying smart contracts that end up getting usage or being a user that actually uses smart contracts and pay for gas. So it's actually very complicated because you can't over incentivize, because if you do, you just get DDoS spam, right? You can't like give people $2 of like liquid rewards for every $1 of gas they spend, because then everyone just comes on your blockchain and then spends $1 to get $2, and that doesn't make any sense. So we've mapped out, modeled all this game theory out, and it's actually really interesting because we're going to actually build it in the sequencer code itself. So like if this actually ends up becoming super big, I think people might actually fork this part of the FraxChain, node software into their own, chains, rollups, or something like that.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Definitely.
Yeah. And with that, we made this one short and sweet. We just want to give people a taste of alpha, just a little bit. So Sam, thank you so much for coming on again.
Always a pleasure, guys.
Yeah.
And I'll be on
Thank
soon.
you, my dude.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Of course. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Ciao.
Peace.
Welcome back, everyone, to Flywheel. I'm your host, DeFi Dave, here with Capital K and Sam McCullough. And we just finished our section with Sam Kazemian, and we're moving on to our protocol partner feature of the week. And this time, we have our friend North from Ramses on. Ramses is an exchange on Arbitrum. I've just been seeing them so much on the timeline and in the chat, offering these insane yields with Frax, and you guys have been working closely with Frax since launch. So, Nord, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, great to be here. Anytime the topic is FRAX, I'm always there and excited to talk about it. They've been the most, so collaborative, so fast moving, no BS, partner, and it's been fantastic to work with them.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. The Frax way. Now, getting into it, for those unfamiliar, what is Ramses, and how does it work?
Yeah, so Ramses is, next gen hyper efficient DEX. And the reason why those titles are appropriate is there's what makes it different than a DEX you might be familiar with is that it's a combination of really intense incentives infrastructure. So what I mean by that is a way for protocols to use their budgets to incentivize liquidity providers. And to do so, in combination with concentrated liquidity. And so we have this incredible, proven, battle-tested technology with, UniV3. And then essentially what we did is we created a novel implementation of that concentrated liquidity with our incentives infrastructure. And so the long story short is you have this environment that's developed, which we're calling competitive farming, to where an LP can super aggressively, open a position that is maybe even one tick, down to one tick, and provide liquidity there. And if they do that, and they're in range, they are in competition with the other LPs who may not be willing to be so active or competitive, and they may have a slightly wider range on their concentrated liquidity position. And if so, that tighter range is rewarded more than the wider range. And what ends up happening is you end up seeing that translated. If you look at where the rubber meets the road, you look at our volume, punching way far above our weight, for our TVL. You look at our TVL growth, and then you look at the fees and how they're feeing. We look today on DeFi Llama, we're of all, fee revenue generation across DeFi, we were number 30. So that's like putting us right up there with a DEX that has 11.5 million in TVL. Something's happening here. It's exciting. It's really great for our partners because they're able to, take advantage of this capital efficiency. And we feel like we're just getting started.
Hell yeah. And speaking of partners, Frax has been a close collaborator with you guys. So can we go into that relationship with Frax more?
Yeah. I think one thing that's notable about Frax is you're talking with the founder, right? So how unique is that to where we may have a specific question like, hey, on this, Frax inverse, Frax Dola pool, we've got a liquidity provider, that's coming in and maybe going to double the TVL. What are we thinking on, incentives, incentive plan for the next, month? And Sam's weighing in, right? He's so even super detailed when they have hundreds of pools across, half as many dexes. He's involved, right? And he cares, and he really wants to stay in the details. And then you have other, great team members. Most of our interaction is with Nader. If everybody, knows Nader, and
Nader,
and he's just great.
Yeah.
Nader, yeah, Nader.
Yeah.
And so he's just fast, and right from the beginning, he's always shot straight with us. Hey, this is how we're going to calculate, our incentives. These are the pools we want to roll with. Any partners we have introduced them to have always had a good experience, and they've been willing to partner with upstarts. Graviton Protocol is a great example. CDP friendly liquidity fork comes to Arbitrum, and guess who's right there waiting for them? Nader and Frax, and they said we're in. So just a great partner.
Yeah, we had the Gravitas guys on This Week in Frax several weeks ago, and they were explaining what they were cooking up. And so, Nader's great. Yeah, I probably talked to Nader the most on the Frax team too, because we're always cooking up incentives and talking about how can we do the community aspect. And I can't imagine how many group chats he has, honestly, all across the board.
And to respond and to still be responsive. and collegial and a good communicator. I mean, hats off to him. He's a better man than I.
And so Ramses is on Arbitrum, and right now Arbitrum is in the middle of the STIP governance vote. Can we go into a bit of that and like how that is shaping up?
Yeah, that one's interesting. There's like the superficial, story, and then there's the one that's a little deeper. And we can hit both according to your interest. The superficial story is, so they smartly, third party said, hey, we're going to get something out the door, right? We're bleeding TVL to Optimism and other chains. We need some activity here. We got a huge treasury. Let's deploy. And so they put together this STIP. Or short-term incentive program. I love it. And so then they open it up, certain criteria, but essentially from a DEX standpoint, the superficial piece is, okay, great. We'll apply for an appropriate amount and we'll put that towards LP incentives. Great. Nothing surprising there. Blue chips, and then support the key building, partners, small and large on the platform. That's interesting. Everybody's been kicking off. It's I don't know if fun's the right word, but the politics, associated with haters and lovers on all sides of each of these platforms, whether they're perps or dexes or, stable coins, like they come out of the woodwork. And so it's been a sideshow of sorts. So excited to get back to work, in that respect. The deeper story is we're kind of operating from a DEX standpoint and an incentive standpoint. We're still operating a little bit in like the 1.0 era on how to handle these incentives. And an example is, what do LPs do with ARB incentives? Well, they farm and they dump them, right? And so just raising our hand and saying, hey, we're actually a next-gen DEX that has some interesting mechanisms, one of them being that we separate the LP rewards, from all these long-term 4-year mostly protocols like FRAX and liquidity, and down the whole line. And we separate how those emissions are determined from these LP rewards, and we reward the LPs with our native, RAM token. So it's like, so we actually are in a position to where we don't just have to point ARB right at LPs. We can actually give it to the community and have the protocols that are 4-year vested into this platform and therefore Arbitrum, all the users who've been building up positions, anybody who wants to come on and have a voice, right? They can buy RAM and lock and build a position. Let's give them the ARB and have them vote it to the pools where they would like to see the emissions go. And in doing so, you have people who want to lock and continually see that ARB stay in the system, benefit, not only the ecosystem, but their pools. Like, why don't we give it to them? And unfortunately, with this STIP, too short a time frame, too much controversy out there, too steep a learning curve, to where we basically we had to say, you know what, this is a bridge too far. We're going to have to tackle this another day, and we're just going to go straight down the middle with the other DEXs and go for LP incentives. But there is a better way, and we're going to get there eventually.
You're gonna get so that is the value prop offer for Ramses, guys. Last question, closing up. Where can people find Ramses? Where can people go and access those yields? And do you know the current numbers right now for any Frax pools on Ramses?
I sure do. Yeah. So Ramses.exchange. You can reach out to, check out our Discord, Ramses Exchange. Great community will help you there. They're also a little irreverent, pretty fun. And also a lot of autistic folks in there. So you'll get help. FRAX FRAX. All these pools are popping right now. FRAX. All these are at least over 400K. And we got 18.7% on FRAX. Frax Dola, 41.5%, Frax USDC, 7%, and then Frax Alchemix, the new player, USD, is at 54%, and that's already over 350K in that pool. So
nice.
Some fun pools to play in on Ramses if you're a Frax Maxi.
Nice. Frax Maxis, be aware, Ramses is here. Thank you, Nord. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and we'll see you again soon.
All right. Peace, guys.
Right. Ciao.
Peace.
Ciao.
All right, guys. This is, keep on rolling with this week in Frax. First Sam, now Ramses, and now we get into the news of protocol of Frax this week. So Sam, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so I think obviously the big news is FRAX V3, and we just had Sam on, and he was talking about everything that happened. He essentially talked about it this week, where today is Thursday right now, but on Wednesday, he was in a pretty star-padded Twitter Spaces with Kane, Stani, Rune, a bunch of other people as well too. And I guess they were just talking stable coins. And he said within there that FRAX V3 was going to launch today, but it wasn't today. He said maybe it would launch. We'll have to watch the contracts. But that means that means that the audits are done and everything's ready to go. So we're like in the final stages, and this is going to come out on Friday. So I would potentially say that we might see contract deployment by that time. If we have docs now, then
I'm waiting in anticipation. It feels like with any Frax release, because it's you just don't know. It's a rough estimate of when it's going to be released. It's like I remember this with Fraxland, and I remember this with Frax Seed. It's like, oh, will it like ever even come out? And it always does, and then boom, it always comes out with a splash.
Yeah.
And so, really exciting. Like this is a culmination of a lot of work and a lot of strategy, and they've been thinking about this for a long time. Like even like back in November 2022. When Sam was on our show, he was talking about, oh, we need to like peg to the risk-free rate. We need to like get the Fed master account or some equivalent to that. And so, there was a lot of FUD, a lot of haters saying like, oh, it can't be done. But, they found this, interesting adapter in the real world with FinRes to, handle all the real world things where Frax can keep, existing in the world on chain. And I think the most interesting thing about what Sam said is how in this kind of environment, like, Frax would be bending on, relying on like FinRes more for the yields. But in the bull market, like, risk on environment, Frax will be like the decentralized stablecoin taking advantage of all the different yields and opportunities on chain.
Yeah, I think the new meme is going to be the all-weather stablecoin.
All-weather stablecoin. The all-weather stablecoin. No stablecoin like this has existed.
Yeah.
We also got some other, I guess, feedback. So right now we're going to have 4 individual years of FXBs, probably 1, 2, 3, and 4. But we had a question in the chat asking, posted a link to Adam Cochran, who was saying he wants on-chain 30 years or like on-chain TLT, which is like a 20-year bond. And so somebody asked that to Sam in the chat, and he's like, yeah, we could do it. We just have to take it to a DAO vote, and if DAO votes for it, then we'll offer it.
Yeah, I wish I got to ask him about bonds in the episode, but I didn't. I gotta be, it was like quick, so I had to be careful. I would rather ask about FraxChain. I'd rather ask about FraxChain at the end, because that is just like, I'm just trying to like dig for, just like a gopher, like in the grid, just dig for alpha. Yeah.
The most exciting thing that happened this week outside of FRAX V3 was not even done by Frax. It was done by our friends at IQWIKI, who deployed a LLM bot.
That thing's so cool.
Chat. Yeah.
Dude,
what was it called again? Like IQGPT?
IQGPT.
IQGPT. Yep. So they deployed it, and people just went to town asking all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
It took over the chat.
I asked them like, what is flywheel DeFi? And then like he answered like, or it. I don't know what the proper pronouns are, A and I maybe, but it definitely it hit spot on. I was like, facts, true.
Yeah.
And you can tell in some of the answers that it like directly pulls from our content. It's pretty obvious. Like
it is integrated. Flywheel DeFi is integrated in IQWIKI.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean IQGPT. So like that's
and
cool.
and when we get IQ token every single time our content is referenced.
Oh really?
I'm just kidding, but wouldn't that be sick? I saw you guys' face for a second. You guys are like, "Oh, this is SEO to the next level."
I mean, maybe we should ask.
Can we ask? Is there like a future where like that's possible?
I mean, that's why everybody's going on strike right now in like Hollywood and stuff. Is that the LLMs will just like take all of our content and use it? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, why can't we get paid?
I mean, at least cite the wiki. I mean, cite the source.
Yeah. They do a lot. I mean, there are a lot of like flywheel sources in there. So
Yeah, that's good.
yeah. That was cool to see. We also had an announcement from Manifold Finance that has launched their long-awaited MEV ETH, and apparently Sam is one of the advisors on the project.
I love how the block headline just had Frax Finance founder, like right.
Well, it doesn't happen that often. I mean, how many other projects does Sam publicly advise? Dave, you might know this because like not many, honestly. Like,
No, not many.
Not at all.
No, he's just like does building and whatnot.
He's too busy building than advising.
Yeah.
You know, he's moving his fingers, not his mouth.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, since he's an advisor on the project, like, is it integrated into FRAX V2 somehow? Like, is Manifold does Manifold like pull ETH out of our?
Oh, that would make sense. That would make sense to be FRAX V2 partner.
Yeah.
It would be like the ideal one, to be honest.
Because like in theory, like they should be able to provide or like maximize their yields because they're just engaging in high level MEV and so they should be able to earn more than the base rate of whatever the interest rate is, and so they should borrow as much as possible going forward. Yeah.
Do you guys know that's on a first come first serve basis? On like the FRAX V2, like, you know, as like it's just like a lending pool that anybody can come and smash on.
Yeah.
And then once it's out, it's out. Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, it just follows one of those like curve
utilization curves.
Yeah, utilization curves. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder when, you know, the new once FRAX V3 is out, I guess that would be the next thing up on the docket is FRAX V2 release.
Correct.
Should be. I mean, they said it's in the last thing that we got was that it was in audit, and that they have a code freeze, and that the audit would probably take about 2 to 3 months.
So it's probably in the middle of audit right now.
Yeah. But that FRAX V2 needs to wait for the full deployment of FraxGov, which I think is going to tie in with. It'll go at the same time. It'll either go at the same time or be right around each other.
Oh, it makes sense if it's at the same time with all these different things. Yeah,
because like at the end of the day, remember the FRAX V2 is built to kind of reduce the risk of the team running the nodes themselves. So now they can just like offload it or something. I'm not sure what happens to the existing 100,000 ETH that's in there, but you know, I'm sure we'll find out as FRAX V2 gets launched.
Yeah.
We had a really cool thread by Seba Bank on Twitter this week. So Seba Bank is let me check this out. They are a Swiss bank, and they did a tweet thread about FRAX, which is pretty interesting. I had not seen this before, but apparently somebody posted it into the chat, and I'm bringing it up right now, where they did a deep dive into FRAX. It's pretty cool. So nice to be getting some like TradFi coverage.
Wow.
So pretty good.
How many followers do they have?
I love how it's named Seba.
Yeah.
I wonder why they're doing this. Was there any connection to like V3? Has like Sam or the guys ever mentioned Seba? Yeah, I mean it's Swiss bank, but like, is there any connection there? I'm just wondering why they. I
think they just did it.
Have they done other threads?
I'll check it out. Yeah, I'll check it out.
No, you can't spell base without Seba.
But it's just strange. Maybe they're just trying to like get more like crypto banks. So they're like a regulated global crypto bank. Maybe there is something. I don't know. But it's really cool to see some like TradFi institutions doing that. And what else we got here?
What do we got in the docket?
Oh yeah, so I don't know if you heard about this MakerDAO thing that happened this week.
Which?
So MakerDAO has a set of like old vaults that it's been using, and one of the assets that it has these like vaults for the V1 vaults is rETH. There's about $26 million dollars worth of loans that originate from this pool. And for some reason, Rune has just decided to like deprecate it and try to get everybody to move from Maker into Spark. This pool generates about $1.4 million of revenue yearly, and it's just being shut down. Like they just say it costs too much for the oracles. And I talked to somebody from Synthetics this morning, and they from the Spartan Council, and they essentially said that those oracles and monitoring services probably cost maybe like $3,000 a month. So they're making a huge amount of money on it, and they want to shut it down. They want to try to move everything to Spark. And even Paper Imperium says that like Spark has no, like the connection of how Spark translates its revenues to MakerDAO is like really unclear.
Spark is a sub-DAO.
Yeah, Spark is a sub-DAO, and so it's if they move all the rETH to the sub-DAO, which is the plan, there's no real connection. There's no real like. It's kind of all up in the air how that revenue would come back. So this was asked in the chat. So I think I posted it, and we were just wondering like when we're going to see the addition of like potentially rETH and stETH to FraxLand. I know it's competitors out there, but stablecoins are stablecoins, and
I think it comes down to the capacity of the Frax team, because they're doing a lot. No, yeah. If I had to say, like think about it, like Frax V3, Frax ETH, V2, BAM, and of course FraxChain. I assume at this stage probably FraxChain takes most of the mind share. You need to have like, if you're deploying a rollup, think about the amount of manpower you need, and so I would just like imagine like, who knows, maybe there could be like a fork of FraxLand in the future that can like have all these different pairs. Maybe there could be like something else, like who knows, but it'd be nice to see it on FraxLand. I mean, FraxLand's just like a phenomenal product, and that was seen with the whole CRV Viper fiasco. But it seems, I don't know when I know like a few things passed, like that you had suggested, but they haven't been added yet. So, I'm not
I'm just going to chalk it up to Drake being on honeymoon for like a couple of weeks and now coming back and getting spun up again. So, but I think, Frax has always tried to like move past any sort of ideas of competition. And this move by Maker looks to be political in some respects, like enshrining stETH, right? And
it's an interesting, like if they're making $1.4 million,
we should have that. Like that's why I'm saying that the stETH market and the rETH market is small, right? They have $500 million worth of stETH in the Maker V1 vaults, like. Imagine if we had $500 million worth of stETH in our FraxLand vaults. Like we'd be churning out what, like I don't know, $50 million a year in or maybe like $20 million a year in fees.
Yeah, AMO lend earnings. Yeah.
So I don't know. This is one that hopefully gets brought up. I would like to see those two. Like even though they have rock solid oracles already done by Chainlink as well too. I don't.
I mean the argument for them is there, especially for stETH, but I mean,
but the team's super busy. I mean, I understand it, especially with getting Frax V3 out. So everything else is pretty much just like there's some cool yields at Liquis, up in the like 80s and 50s% for ETH and Frax ETH and Frax Alchemix USD. Lodestar's got some stuff as well, but that's pretty much it. I mean, the big news this week is Frax V3. Travis gave us some like really awesome, the chicken shots. Yeah, let me pull this up. Yeah,
I love those chickens so much.
So look at that beautiful chicken right there, right?
Oh,
it's just like this is like one of many that he posted in. So thank you, Travis. Please share more chicken photos with us. Maybe we should change from Frax Bowl to like the chicken.
No, Frax Bowl. We need to keep it Frax Bowl.
That's it, guys. That's all we got for this week.
Fun week, dude. I've been fucking training. I was telling you guys, I sparred for the first time today. Oh my goodness, that was exhausting.
Oh, Dave, you want to tell the listeners why you are sparring and training?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be in Crypto Fight Night. I agreed to be in a boxing match. It's been a dream of mine to be in a boxing match. I don't know why. It's just like something I really wanted to do. And so when I saw this 2 years ago, I asked, They didn't respond to me. I asked again. They didn't have an opponent for last year, and now this year they like found someone. So I've been training every goddamn day since I got back from Singapore.
My man.
And yeah, dude, I'm coming in prepared, and like, all I gotta say is I have heart. I have fucking heart, and I'm gonna like, this is gonna go.
Hell yeah, you do.
Yeah, like if there's one thing about me, it's like, I don't half-ass shit. Like, just look at Flywheel.
Where's the fight and when is the fight?
The fight is November 24th in Dubai. So if you're in Dubai,
Gotcha.
hit me up. We can have Thanksgiving.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, sweet. I guess that's it for this week in Frax. This was an alpha packed episode. If you want to get all the alpha and then some, make sure you go and subscribe to your website, flywheeldefi.com. Right now, do it right away. Make sure you hit that bell button. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Give us a like. You know what to do. Make sure you follow us on these social platforms: Twitter, TikTok, Telegram, at FlywheelDeFi. You can get exclusive show notes in our friend tech. Go get a key right now. Not financial advice. It's only access to our exclusive notes because you want alpha. So we got it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at DeFiDave22.
Follow me at 0xcapital_K.
And I'm at traders_insight.
And as always, we'll see you next week. Peace.
Go to friend tech.